In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how my 60-year-old menopausal client lost her menopausal belly fat. And I'm going to warn you, it did not start with dieting. Actually, the moment she stopped dieting is when everything started to work for her. So stick around because I am going to show you the exact step-by-step process we used to help her get from that before picture to that after picture and what we needed to do to get her body to restore. So we needed to pay attention to her sleep, her protein intake, her insulin sensitivity, her muscle mass. All of these aspects needed to be addressed. But believe it or not, she was not on hormone replacement therapy. And when her body was finally restored, the fat loss phase actually worked. So here we go. Let's jump in and take a look. In her case, because she was chronically undereating, that was contributing to increased sarcopenia, which is basically the loss of muscle, okay? Because when we are not eating enough, we are not supporting what is needed to maintain our current of lean mass, especially in menopause. So that was causing an issue, along with the fact that she had increased inflammation due to ulcerative colitis. She also struggled with her thyroid. So all of this was kind of contributing to a perfect storm, along with being menopausal. So let's take a look at some of her slides that we have showing and explaining what's going on. So this client was experiencing metabolic adaptation, which is basically just due to the fact that she had loss of lean mass, thyroid issues. Her body was struggling to produce a metabolic engine or enough of a metabolic fire to be effective. So, and what this leads to is less muscle mass means your body cannot handle sugar as well. So that's why a lot of times, sometimes people will say like, I feel like if I eat one cookie, I just blow up. That's not exactly what happens to somebody, but when we do not have enough lean mass, we have fewer insulin receptors in our system, in our muscle mass. We have less places to store glucose. And then we have inefficient ability to use that glucose as energy because it really gets stored as fat. So now your metabolism slows way down. Losing muscle means you can burn 100 to 400 calories less per day. So when we have overall less lean mass, okay, we are not burning a lot of calories. So in her case, she was probably she was using less than 100 to 400 calories per day. Now we have to add in her thyroid issue, so we can add on another 200 calories to that. So she really wasn't very efficient at burning calories. Menopause, on top of that, makes this whole situation worse. So dropping estrogen levels speed up muscle loss and make your body tend to store fat around the middle. Now she is fighting an uphill battle. Her body is now storing fat more easily and burning fewer calories through the day, which is why it feels so much harder to lose weight than it used to. But the good news, there are ways to fix this, and building muscle is one of them. So when this client came in, she was approximately 136 pounds and she was 5'4", and she was pretty much sedentary because she was working. And we have to take that into consideration. So we took a look at her body fat measurements and her lean muscle mass. I like for clients to go get DEXA scans quite often because they're very exact. In this case, this client had approximately 85, 86 pounds of lean mass. That is not a huge metabolic generator. It's not terrible, but it's not really going to be enough to create the metabolic burn that we're looking to be able to generate in order for our bodies to lose fat. So let's take a look at what this means calorically. So first we're going to take a look at her body fat levels, and we can see that she has approximately 86 pounds of lean mass, and her BMI is actually quite normal. Her BMI is not bad, right? But she was frustrated with this tire that she had around her. So, but her fat weight was about 49.5 pounds. So we needed to be able to reduce her fat weight. But when we look at the next chart, based on her current statistics, at a sedentary level, okay, and using about 36% body fat, she can only burn 1,467 calories on average. And this is a very hard level to eat at. People don't understand how difficult it is to be able to eat so little, so accurately. So in this case, if she wanted to lose weight, okay, she would actually have to reduce down to about 1,000 calories to even make the scale start to budge. But that is not a sustainable way to be able to live, because I always tell clients, whatever manner in which you lose weight is pretty much what you're going to have to keep up in order to maintain to keep it off. So if she had to go down to 1,000 calories a day to lose weight, would she be able to do that long enough without eating off her left arm? I know I would not be able to sustain that at all. So the next chart shows you that by cutting, so we can see up here it says cutting, based on her current statistics, she would have to go down to about 967 calories or maybe up to 1,100 calories max to be able to make that happen. And to be honest, measuring and tracking your food that accurately for a very long time is also too not a sustainable activity. So what choice do we have but to change the current composition of her body? This is why eating 1,100 calories per day and still not being able to lose weight is actually entirely realistic. A lot of times people will say, oh, you must be overeating. I mean, I'm sure at some point a client will overeat. Some clients, yes, may fall into binge eating, but that was not this client's issue. She was pretty good at being adhering to this type of food dynamic, but again, it's not sustainable. It's just not a sustainable approach. Plus, on top of that, now we have to add in the factor of inflammation. So sometimes belly fat isn't always just fat. Sometimes it can have some inflammation in there. So we're going to take a look at this now and what this means in her journey. Since this client had ulcerative colitis and a thyroid issue, she was also chronically inflamed, and her belly looked bloated without even necessarily being over fat. This happens because ulcerative colitis inflammation tricks your brain into thinking you are starving. This makes you hungrier and slowing your metabolism, even when you are eating enough. Also, inflammation breaks down muscle, not fat. That is why controlling ulcerative colitis is not just about your gut. It's also about protecting the muscle that burns calories. Ulcerative colitis and menopause equal triple trouble. Gut inflammation, muscle loss, and hormonal changes team up to make your body store fat and resist weight loss. Ulcerative colitis inflammation spreads beyond your gut. It blocks your I'm full signals and tells your body to store everything as fat instead of burning it. Reducing inflammation removes the brake on your metabolism. Cutting triggers like gluten and dairy lets your body finally respond to your weight loss efforts instead of fighting you. When her inflammation started to reduce, so did the size of her belly. And that was even before the fat loss stage. We haven't even gotten to that yet. So now the next step for her was to be able to efficiently and effectively track macros. This was most surprising to her because I actually bumped up her calories pretty significantly. I bumped her up to about 1,600 calories a day because now by this point in her journey, she was weight training. Okay, and she was building the skill in order to weight train really well. We were focusing on building large muscles first, right? Because as she's feeding them, they're going to grow faster. This is not a time to diet. And this is one of the big mistakes that clients make is they are focused so much on making that scale go down that they're really not setting their body up to make it an efficient burner of calories. For this client, pushing her up to 1,600 calories, yes, definitely made her nervous by far, because she was like, if I can't maintain at 1,100 calories, how am I possibly going to maintain at 1,600 calories? But as she started to maintain at 1,600 calories and then her skill with training started to improve, then we would slowly increase her a little bit more. I think she ended up reaching up to about 1,800 caloric intake while she was learning to track calories really well. This part, I would say, is so important and so key because a lot of people will perceptually assume that they are eating well. They say quite often, I eat healthy, I get my protein in, but protein was key in this situation. By the time she figured out exactly what 120 and 130 grams of protein looked like for her, because we were shooting for approximately 1 gram per pound of her current body weight. Okay, so she was about 135 pounds and she ideally wanted to weigh about 125 or 122. We aimed for that range in between 120 to 130 grams of protein. And measuring, tracking, and weighing is not a simple thing. I will tell you that most people, they rail against this, okay, because they don't want to do it because it's time consuming. And it is just an education that you have to take time in order to kind of relearn what food actually looks like on your plate. So she did a great job of just taking about a month of really truly measuring and tracking and weighing what she ate. And she was very surprised to see that she was chronically undereating on the stuff that she needed the most, which was protein and fiber. So this was a very important step for her to kind of re-educate what her eyeballs saw on her food plate. Now, this is the one thing that everybody assumes. Everybody assumes she eventually went on hormone replacement therapy, but this was not a hormone replacement therapy client. She was not on hormone replacement therapy. And I will put out my bias. I am an advocate of hormone replacement therapy. I am in a hormone replacement therapy. But at the time, there's still a lot of discussion over how a woman who is 60 years old, if she's been out of menopause for more than 10 years, should they use hormone replacement therapy? So there really still is a lot of question around that. I am sure that that is going to change in time too, but in this case with this client, she was not on hormone replacement therapy. So how was she able to lose and get her body to change this much without testosterone and progesterone? So let's take a look. So for one, resistance training rebuilds the metabolic engine. Strength training helps maintain muscle mass while losing fat, and more muscle mass leads to a higher metabolism that burns more calories even at rest. Studies show that resistance exercises, aerobic exercises, or a combination of both led to a 9% decrease in body weight in obese older adults. She was able to adhere to a high Mediterranean diet, which enables menopausal women to lose fat mass and maintain muscle mass with no significant difference to younger women. So pay attention to that, because menopausal women tend to respond much better to a Mediterranean diet versus the effects that it would have on a 20-year-old woman or a 30-year-old woman. And this also improves cardiovascular and metabolic risk factors. This works because it reduces inflammation and reverses leptin resistance and improves insulin sensitivity and restores mitochondrial function, essentially removing the metabolic blocks that hormonal changes created. So in other words, these three things combined, done consistently, started to reverse the effects of menopause, which is so important because we are told that, oh well, as you get older, your body starts to slow down and you just don't burn as much. And that's not really entirely true. Studies even show that now, that really it's the changes that occur in our body because we really haven't been doing things to preserve the state that it was before, especially lean muscle mass or lean tissue. So like I said before, hormone replacement therapy does help. I will not deny that. Is it the magic cure for people? Often, no, because they need to be able to do many of the other factors, such as lifting weights, getting good sleep, doing all of these things, right, to help the body start to be able to function well. I, again, am in favor of hormone replacement therapy for women, but if someone cannot do it because of maybe possible breast cancer reasons or whichever, there are other ways that, yes, your body can start to respond. And it may, if in my opinion, hormone replacement therapy makes it a little easier to swim upstream, right? When we are not having our hormones balanced, you're going to have to work a little bit harder, yes, okay? But you can still make the changes in most of the cases when you're set up well. And here's the one thing that nobody wants to hear in this case is belly fat sometimes means exhaustion or cortisol levels, right? So we've heard that for so many years, belly fat and cortisol. I have to lower my cortisol response, or, oh my gosh, I'm just exhausted all the time. But it really does have an effect, especially when you don't have estrogen. So let's take a look at that. Sleep isn't just rest. It is your secret weapon against menopausal belly fat. When you sleep 7 to 9 hours, your body lowers cortisol, which stops fat from storing around your middle. Sleep is also when your muscles actually recover and grow from strength training. Muscles do not grow in the strength training session all the time, which is why it is so unwise for women in menopause to train 5 to 6 days a week unless they are resting and recovering really well. Most people struggle with that. So good sleep also keeps your hunger hormones balanced so you are not constantly craving junk food. Without sleep, your body works against you, holding on to belly fat, breaking down muscle, and making you hungry. Prioritize sleep and everything else gets easier. So I'm sure you've heard this one phrase, you cannot outtrain a bad diet. Well, you definitely cannot outtrain a bad diet plus high stress. That is not going to work. And in this next phase, this next part we're going to talk about, this is the one thing that so many people get wrong. And I think the hardest thing that I've ever had to tell a client is don't diet. Don't try to lose weight for at least 8 to 12 months. And that was really hard. I empathize because people want to change their body now, okay? But the clients who really heed that advice and they just don't try to diet and don't try to get that scale to change so quickly, they do so much better. So in this case, this client really did work on doing everything to restore her body's function. As she started to eat more, she was able to lift more. As she was able to lift more, she was able to burn more fat because she was building more muscle. The more she ate actually had a positive effect on her thyroid, and they had to cut her thyroid medication in half, okay, because now her body was getting filled with nutrients instead of starving it. This was so key, and it takes a lot of patience. And it takes a lot of feeling like you are the author of a best-selling book. And you know you are writing this best-selling book. Nobody else knows you're writing it. You know you're putting the time in. You know you're sitting down and doing the work, and you're writing chapter after chapter. And finally, the big reveal is going to come. And then everybody's going to be like, oh my gosh, when did you have time to do all this? Oh my gosh, this book is amazing. And that's what they say to clients about their bodies, right? So sometimes they'll see and they'll be like, oh my gosh, look at this before after picture, and like it happened in 3 months, and it did not. It took her, I would say, a total of 18 months. But in the end of that, she ended up building her body up to 96 to 98 pounds of lean mass. And then when she got to a certain phase, and we saw that her muscle mass was like pretty much starting to slow down in terms of the amount she was putting on, because this is the thing, when you have untouched virgin muscles and you have not used them in a really long time, if ever, okay, and you start strength training, and if you do the right thing by it and feed those muscles versus starve those muscles, okay, you're going to start to see a rapid increase in muscle mass. And that happens to clients often within the first year. So in this first year for her, she was able to put on about 10 to 12 pounds of muscle in the whole year. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're 60 and you're in menopause and you have no estrogen and no testosterone, it's actually a lot, okay? So she did a fabulous job in doing that. And then by the time she got up to about 96, 98 pounds of lean mass and her body fat reduced some, she got down to 28% body fat, right? Then we were able to put her into a fat loss phase. And when her body could not respond at 1,100 calories in the beginning, now her body was responding at 1,400 calories in a deficit because her body was used to eating at about 1,800 calories. Okay, now she was able to drop down to 1,400 calories, 1,300 calories, prioritizing protein, and then we got this result. And you could see the difference from before and after. And that was tremendous. And I think the most important thing in that whole phase for her was that she felt so great, right? She felt so great. She was able to do all the things, and she learned how to deadlift, and she learned how to lift weights, and she learned how to make sure that she was using her muscles efficiently, and that everything was now starting to be a rinse and repeat cycle. So if this sounds anything like you, and you struggle with anything like this, I hope you found some value in this video, because this sounds like a lot of women, and there are so many nuances that occur with nutrition, with a person's body, and what it is that is their big obstacle. So knowing what your good statistics are about your body is invaluable. So if you are in your 50s or 60s and you feel like your metabolism is broken, it's not. A lot of times we just need to be restored. A lot of times women are just constantly taking from their bodies, and people are taking from us. We have kids taking from us, older parents, our family around us, work is taking from us, everything is taking out of us, and we don't take enough time to put back into us. So a lot of times we're just underfed, undernourished, and highly undermuscled, right? We need to maintain lean mass. And in this client's case, she actually started to restore some of her bone density, which is huge. And then if she was to go on hormone replacement therapy at some point, that would even further go in the positive direction where she would be able to restore more bone mass. So if this is anything like you, please take a look at my beginner playlist. Go to my beginner playlist, and you're going to see there are beginner workouts and teach you step by step from the very beginning what it is to start lifting weights from the ground floor, right? This is not, I teach very beginners. I don't teach people who now have already athletic and they want to go into a powerlifting competition. That's not what I teach. I teach women from the ground up exactly what is it they're supposed to be able to do in order to make this lifestyle change. So I hope you can like, subscribe, please subscribe, hit that bell, okay, and come back because I'm going to be posting a lot of videos like this and a lot of different case studies that speak to a different variety of women. So have a great day. Hope this helps. Ask any questions and I will answer them in the comments below. Bye.